Pareto charts get their name from early 20th century Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto, who observed that a small number of causes frequently accounted for the majority of observed effects. Pareto noted that quite regularly only 20% of the causes could be associated with 80% of the effects. You may have heard this called the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule. Now, what this suggests is that identifying and focusing corrective actions on this significant few can have the most impact or bang for the buck. A Pareto chart like the one you see here uses a vertical bar graph to chart frequency of occurrence in descending order, plus a line graph to show the cumulative total of these occurrences as a percentage. Together, the two graphs can provide hard data as to what is contributing to the largest percentage of occurrences and therefore needs attention first. Before we get started, I encourage you to download a copy of the worksheet that you see here in this video. That will allow you to follow along with us now or use it for practice later. Just pause this video, then click the download link that's next to the window containing this video and download your copy. Our Pareto chart is going to be focused on the most frequent diagnoses of the past year. I've already created column headers for the cumulative count and the cumulative percentage. The cumulative count column will show the total number of cases after each item's count has been added to it, and the cumulative percentage column will show the percentage that each incremental count contributes to the total. First, we want to sort our diagnoses counts from highest to lowest, and let's look at two ways to do that. The most common sorting method is to select a single cell in the column you wish to sort, and then in the upper right-hand corner of the Home tab is the Sort and Filter icon. You click on that, it presents a drop-down. You choose Sort Largest to Smallest, and now your column is sorted in descending order. You might run into a case when sorting when Excel, rather than keeping these column headers up at the top of the column, will actually mix them up in the sort. If that happens to you, select one of the column headers, go back to Sort and Filter, and then down here you'll see an icon that says Filter. You click on that, and then you'll see these little drop downs will appear at the top of each column. And what that gives you is the opportunity to sort and filter here, and it makes sure that the column headers stay in place. To remove those filter drop downs, go back to Sort and Filter, click on the filter icon, and they'll disappear. Now we need to fill in the cumulative count column. To do that, I'm going to select the top empty cell in the column, put in an equal sign to start my formula, and then I put in the cell reference for the first cases in that cases column, and that's cell B2. I hit the enter key, and now you see the matching 548. I could have typed in 548, but by using this cell reference, any time the value of the malaise and fatigue changes, the chart will automatically update. Now I go to the next cell down and I enter a formula that adds the cases from the next item to that total I just created. To do that, I put in my equal sign to tell Excel there's a formula on the way. Then I'm going to click on the cell containing the next item's cases. I'll put in a plus sign. Then I will click on the cumulative count from above. Now I could have typed these cells in as well, but by clicking on the cells it makes sure I've chosen the correct ones. Then I hit enter, and now I have the next cumulative count. Now I'm going to take advantage of a great Excel copy and paste feature and paste this formula into the remainder of the cells in the column. To do that, I'm going to select the cell that contains the formula, and then you notice in the lower right-hand corner of that cell there's a small black box. When I move my cursor over that box, it turns into a cross. I hold down the left mouse button and then drag all the way down to the bottom of the column, and notice how all of the cells now contain the formula and the cumulative count. But notice, even though the original formula is B3 plus C2, when I pasted it into the cell beneath it, it became B4 plus C3, and then B5 plus C4, and so on. Here's what Excel did. When I created that formula, Excel understood I wanted to add the cell value to the left of the formula to the cell value above the formula. Then, when I pasted the formula into a new location, Excel looked at where it was in the worksheet and added the cells to the left and above that location. This is called a relative reference. When pasting formulas, Excel's default behavior is to adjust the formula's cell references relative to the new location. Excel was designed to perform repetitive calculations on thousands of rows and columns. Relative references is a powerful tool and a huge time saver when you're copying and pasting formulas. Now let's calculate our cumulative percentages, starting with the first item. To get that percentage, I divide each item's cumulative count by the total cumulative count, which is located in cell C11. So I put in my equals key, I click on the cell containing that first cumulative count, put in a slash to indicate division, click on the cell that contains the total cumulative count, and hit the enter key. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, 0.290870488 looks a little intimidating. So I'm going to make it look more like the percentages we're used to seeing. I'm also going to let the formula do the formatting for me instead of using the Format Cell dialog box. To do that, I'm going to select the cell containing the formula and then go up here in the formula bar. I could also double click on the cell containing the formula and do the same thing. I'm going to enclose this division operation in parentheses first to make sure that it's done first, and then I'm going to put in an asterisk which indicates multiplication and then put in 100. Let's see what it looks like. Now I like 29.087048883 a little better, but what I can do is I'm going to select the cell one more time, and then up here in the ribbon there is a number group, and what I'm going to do is choose decrease the decimal, and each time I click on that you can see it happening. The decimal goes down. Now I really only need one decimal place here. Now I have 29.1%, which is much easier to read. Before dragging this new formula down, let's look at how relative references will treat this formula. As we drag the formula down to paste it into the other cells, we would expect the top part of the fraction, the numerator, to change from C2 to C3, C4, and so on. We would also expect the bottom part of the fraction, the denominator, to change from C11 to C12 and C13. And that's a problem for Excel. Let me show you. What we get here are division by zero errors. We got the errors because Excel, using relative references, went down to cells C12 and C13 looking for denominators and didn't find any numbers there. What I'm going to do is tell Excel to turn off relative references to that portion of the formula containing that denominator. To do that, I select the cell containing the original formula, and then up here in the formula bar, I click in front of the column reference in the denominator, that's C11 here, and in front of that letter C, I put in a $sign. And then I do the same thing for the row reference, that's the 11. I put in a $sign there, and then I hit the enter key to accept the formula. Notice that it still says 29.1. Now I'm going to drag down like I did before, and I have all my percentages. Using $signs like this is called setting an absolute reference. You use absolute references whenever you want a cell reference in a formula to stay the same when the formula is used in another cell. You will typically see absolute references used to multiply different columns or rows by the same interest or tax rate, as well as by sales commissions or discounts. In our case, we wanted to divide each cumulative total by the same number so we could get a cumulative percentage. If you're new to Excel or haven't worked with references much before, this talk about relative and absolute references might be a little intimidating. Please don't let it intimidate you. Relative references is a great feature the Excel folks put into place to make your life much easier when performing repetitive tasks. Download that practice file I mentioned a few minutes ago and use it while rewatching this video to become more familiar with how to put references to work for you. Now that our columns are filled in, it's time to build the Pareto chart. I start by selecting these first two columns, the diagnoses names and the number of cases. Then I hold down the Control key and select that cumulative percentage column. I don't need the cumulative count. This is about the percentages. We created the cumulative count column so that we could build our percentages. Next, I click on the Insert tab and then move over to the Charts area. Now, there is no Pareto chart listed. Remember, this is a combination of column and line chart. So I'm going to start with a column chart, choose 2D column, and then resize it so we can work on it a little more easily. To create the line chart, right-click on the columns representing cumulative percentage, choose Change Series Chart Type, and then choose a line chart. I'm going to choose Line with Markers. Click OK, and now you have your line chart. The reason the line chart is down here at the bottom of the graphic is because it's sharing its value axis with those diagnoses counts, and they have much higher numbers. Our next step is to give the line chart its own value axis. And to do that, I right-click on that cumulative percentage line chart and choose Format Data Series. When the Format Data Series window appears, confirm that Series Options is selected and then choose Secondary Axis and click OK. And now our line chart is up towards the top of the graphic and it has its own value axis. I'm not a fan of my new scale going to 120%. That's caused by some default Excel behavior. So I'm going to select that scale, right-click, choose Format Axis, make sure that Axis Options is chosen, and over here you'll see that there's a maximum line. It's set to auto. Again, that's default Excel behavior. I'm going to change it to fixed and change that 120 to a 100. Click Close, and I have a percentage scale that goes to 100%. And I have a finished Pareto chart. Our Pareto chart is built, but I've spent so much time explaining Excel functionality during the process that I'm concerned you might think building a Pareto chart itself is a long, involved process. But that's not the case. They are quick and straightforward to build once you're familiar with the steps. To demonstrate that, I'm going to build the chart again in real time. The only exception is I will paste the formulas instead of typing them. I start the process by sorting my cases from largest to smallest. Then I start building the cumulative count column, starting with the first item. Then I enter the formula that actually builds that cumulative count, and then drag it down using relative references to adjust my formulas for me. I select the first cell in my cumulative percentage column, enter that percentage formula, remembering to use my dollar signs for absolute references, and drag that down. Next, I select those first two columns, the names of the diagnoses and the cases, hold down the Control key, drag and select my cumulative percentage column, choose Insert, go to the Charts area, choose Column, 2D column. When my chart comes up, I select and right-click on that cumulative percentage column, change Series Chart Type, Line with Markers, click OK. Now I need to add my secondary value axis, so I'm going to select my new line chart, right-click on it, choose Format Data Series, select Secondary Axis, click on Close, and finally, to get 100% as the top, I right-click on that secondary value axis, choose Format Axis, change the maximum from auto to fixed 100%. Click Close, and now I've got that Pareto chart. Building Pareto charts is quick and straightforward once you've had some practice. Before I wrap things up, let me show you a few things to make your chart more effective as a standalone graphic in a presentation. The first thing I want to do is get rid of this legend over here and reclaim all of that white space. Remember, whenever your chart is selected, the three Chart Tools tabs, Design, Layout, and Format, are active, and that's what you use to make these changes. I click the Layout tab, and over here in the Labels area is an icon that says Legend. It has a drop down. I'm going to choose that drop down and choose None, and now that white space has been taken up by my chart, making it larger in that area. Even though that legend is gone, I think it's important that the audience still sees that information. So still on the Layout tab and in that Labels area, there's an icon that says Axis Titles. I click on that. The first one I choose is the primary vertical axis title. I choose Rotated Title. I click it again and choose Secondary Vertical Axis Title, and again Rotated Title. And since we're speaking of titles, let's go ahead and add a chart title. And again, in that same Labels area, I choose Chart Title, and I'm going to make it above the chart. I'm not going to make you watch me type, but now I have a Pareto chart I'd be glad to show my boss. This is John Sistrunk with the Veterans Health Administration's Office of Informatics and Information Governance. Take care.